Hello. Hi, everybody. Happy Fab Friday. Happy Fabulous Friday. Can we believe that it is the end of September already? No, I totally cannot believe that. It seemed like it was just the beginning of September. It seemed like it was just time for, uh, I don't know. Summer seemed to like end quickly here for us. Um, but It's a beautiful fall day. I'm so glad to be here on this gorgeous fall day. Well, it's fall for us here. I know Sally Ann is in Australia where it's spring, also a beautiful season. And Riddell is in Switzerland where it's fall there too, I believe. And Mimu is in Kenya where it's like the dry season right now. And then we have Anne who's in Maine where of course the fall colors are exquisite or just as beautiful as they are here. We've got Jennifer in North Carolina, where it's also beautiful. Belinda in Nashville, C. Renee in Alabama, Katrina in West Virginia, Nancy in California, and Dana in the US as well. And then back here in Canada, over on the East Coast in Nova Scotia, we have lovely Lisa, my VA, and my virtual assistant. And in the province next door, we have Charmaine in Alberta. And then there's all of my fellow Okanagan beautiful women. So I want to shout out to all of you, to Val and Darlene, my niece who's in Penticton, to Pearl and Hazel and Debbie and Diane and Marnie and Jana and Elizabeth and Karen and Cassie and Kaylin, all the Ks, Gloria, and Dale and Glenda and Christine and Donna and Dawn and Phyllis and Patricia and Carmen and Brenda. So that's all of the Okanagan beautiful babes there. Wow, I feel so blessed to have each of you here in this community where it's really about celebrating and learning and standing in our power to live the life experience that we want without requiring ourselves to be perfect and without apologizing for it, right? To just be able to have and live and create the life experience we want imperfectly and unapologetically. So can you believe we've reached the end of September? As I said, like it just went so fast. It went from like, summer, midsummer to like immediate crispy, cool morning fall, right? So when I sent out the email earlier in September where I said September is the new January, because I really feel like it is, it's got that fresh start feeling to it, right? Because it's like the kids are going back to school and we're getting back into our routine kind of after the lazy, hazy, in this case, in our case here, it was really hazy because we had so much smoke from all the fires. So those kind of lazy, hazy days of summer, we're returning back to kind of our old routine and it feels like with a new season, um, hopefully we've had some time to kind of recharge over the summer and we're returning to this new season and kind of that final quarter of the year. And it just feels like we don't necessarily really want to return to our exact same old routine, right? We want to kind of spice things up, to kind of switch things up. It's a new season. It's time for, to get back into a new routine, not just the old repetitive routine that we were in before. So in that way, autumn or September kind of feels like it's like the new January, because it feels like it's like that ideal time or ideal new season or opportunity to kind of open up to some new possibility and create something new for yourself. So like, who is feeling that? Like you just didn't want to come back after the summer into the same old, right? You're like, hey, it's a new season. Summer's over, which is great. I mean, I love summer. It's just that when we hit fall again, it's like, okay, we do have to kind of get back into routine. We just don't necessarily want it to be the same old routine we had before, right? So we're ready for something new, ready for a new experience. And so I'd asked in the article, in the newsletter that I had sent out, where September is the new January, do you know what that new experience is that you're kind of craving, or do you need to get some clarity on it? Do you need to kind of get clear on, you're feeling the urge, you're like, yeah, I feel like I want something new. I don't just want to go back to the same old. I'm feeling like I'm ready for some change. And I'm seeing that so much right now. I am seeing, like, my clients are coming to me, and like big shifts are happening, right? Big shifts are happening, and people are, they're changing jobs and moving and, changing relationships, renewing relationships that had kind of come apart earlier in the year. And I mean, we're seeing a whole bunch of new things coming back. Like, can you believe Murphy Brown is back on TV? Oh, I'm so excited to watch it. I know it was on last night. I have not watched it yet. I forgot, I wasn't home last night, so I forgot to PVR it, but I did find it online on City TV is airing it, and you can watch the whole thing live. So if you haven't watched it yet, you can catch it there. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, is that there's so much shifting and changing happening right now. It's just, the air is kinetic with it. Like, I'm seeing it personally. My kids are going through tons of changes right now. My mom is retiring. Two of my brothers have changed jobs. There's lots of big shifts going on. So I'm not the only one that's feeling it. And I know I'm not the only one that's feeling it, because there's been lots of response to this email, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. So I know that, sometimes we need help, though, when we get to that point where we're feeling like, hey, yeah, I'm feeling a change coming on. I feel like I want to make a change, for things to be different than they are. But we don't often have the clarity to know, okay, well, what is it that I want, though, right? So, this is what I know after 9 years of coaching women through change and transition, is that often making change or deciding on what type of change we want can be confusing, right? And for the very reason that as soon as we start to get a little outside our comfort zone, what happens is then we bump up against our own inner blocks, our own habits, and our own limitations. So I'm going to talk about that in this class today, because even when it's a change we deeply desire, like we really want it for ourselves, even if the thing we want to change is actually making us miserable, the fact is that that misery is familiar, right? And you guys know this, right? The brain likes familiarity, because the brain works on patterns, right? So the brain likes to know what to expect. So it likes things to be predictable. And so it will start to, go a little crazy. And we'll talk about how the brain reacts a little bit later. But just because our brain is doing that doesn't mean that what we want isn't good for us, right? It doesn't mean that the change isn't good for us. And what I see happening is that confusion then becomes the hold back, right? It is the thing that stops us from making the desired change. If we stay stuck in confusion, that feels safe to the brain, right? It feels safe to us. But what happens is, if nothing changes, right? That becomes limiting and stifling and stagnant, and that's not really living, right? That's just kind of existing, which I know all of us are done with. We are done with existing. We want to live. We want to be alive. We want to be living our lives. We don't want to just be going through the motions, right? So you've heard the saying, I've heard the saying, you know, you're either living or you're dying, right? And really that is true, right? You can't go east and west at the same time, right? You have to pick a direction, right? And so living is fluid, right? It requires growth, it requires movement, it requires expansion and evolution and new experiences. It requires change, right? So to help you kind of move through any confusion or stuckness you might be experiencing, I put into the September newsletter, or the September is the new January newsletter, 3 questions to ask yourself to get clarity for the real desired change and new possibility you want. And I'm going to give them to you here because I received quite a few emails, so quite a few replies from some of you and from other clients and readers of my newsletter who like really sat down and answered these questions because they're craving change and they're feeling that confusion and they're feeling that stuckness, right? Like they're stuck. I don't know if stuckness is a word, but it applies. It encapsulates what I'm talking about. That feeling of just being stuck, right? Like you want something to change, but you just can't seem to get things moving or get beyond the inertia of being able to make change. So I did get lots of replies on this, and there were like some really big ahas from you. Like, you know, one of my beautiful clients realized that, you know, kind of hidden beneath her really focused drive and her pursuit of a corporate career was actually this like really subtle inner calling to pursue yoga teacher training. Because you know what she realized from answering these questions was that she was like really craving like a nurturing balance between like that striving and that, you know, doing all of that, like really you know, outward action. She was really kind of craving a balance between that doing and then just the being, and the, you know, the connection between mind and body that yoga training brings you, right? And just that balance of like in one part of her life she's really striving in that pursuit of a corporate career, and then she needs kind of the stillness of yoga to kind of balance that out in order to give her the life experience that she wants, right? But she hadn't realized that until she sat down with these questions, and then she all of a sudden realized, yeah, that is like an inner calling, a real component of my life that's missing. And that, you know, that imbalance eventually would have worn her out, right? It would have burnt her out. So another client sent me a letter that I just really appreciated, I really loved, where she said that she realized that the thing that she needed to change, and I have to tell you what this is because I want to code it exactly. Okay, she said that she wanted to stop lighting herself on fire to keep everyone else warm, right? I love it. That is so insightful, so brilliant. And I know many of you know what she means by that, right? Like wearing yourself out for other people, making self-sacrifice for others, always putting yourself and your needs and your desires last. So I know a lot of you can relate to that. There have definitely been times in my life where I've related to that. And that is like such a huge aha to have when you can see that, wow, that is the sacrifice that I have been making in my life, is I have literally been lighting myself on fire to keep everybody else warm, right? So taking the time to like sit with these questions is well worth it, okay? Because these are big personal revelations of the real desired change that you'll discover that you want, right? By giving yourself time to answer these questions. So without any further ado, here are the 3 questions. Okay, so the first one is, what would feel really good in your heart, mind, body, and soul to do? Like, that's a fantastic question, if I have to say so myself. What would feel really good in your heart, mind, body, and soul to do? Because we don't actually think of that, right? We're like all external focused, and we're trying to like do our, pros and cons list, and, asking other people, and, we're trying to look at the outside world and the facts of the outside world, and kind of make decisions based on that, or make change based on that, without really considering like what would feel really good in your heart, your mind, your body, and soul to do. Because that's where your truth is, right? Your body, your heart, your soul, they know what your truth is. They know what you really want. Okay, so that's question number 1. Question number 2, what experience would make you feel really proud of yourself? What experience would make you feel really proud of yourself? And I know I've been private messaging some of you the last couple days, talking about just some action things that you were doing where you were feeling really proud of yourself. And I'm feeling so proud of you too, because you're taking the action to do the thing that is good for you, that's about caring for you. And so that, like, what experience would make you feel really proud of yourself, is such a good question. Okay, question number 3, this is so good. If you took everyone else out of the equation, what would you do? Okay, so just like for a moment in time, like just take everyone else out of the equation, because I know we all have huge experience, responsibilities. We have family, we have spouses, we have kids, we have parents, we have work, we have all of these other responsibilities all the time, and other people that we have to like take into account. But just for a moment, just to be able to like access a different part of your brain that typically you don't access because you're always considering those other factors in your life. Just for a moment, give yourself the opportunity to think, if I took everyone else out of the equation, what would I do? Okay, we're just like trying to open ourselves up, right, to get to some new ideas about what it is we want, because you never know, like when you are limiting yourself because you're like, well, I can't do X because of this, and I can't do Y because of that, and I can't do Z or Z depending on where we're at, if you're in Canada or the US, because of this, it just like limits, and then we're in a part of the brain where we're just shut down, right? And so just allow yourself just to explore that. If you took everyone else out of the equation, what would you do? Okay, so fabulous questions. I designed these to like cut directly through the confusion and get right to your heart's truth. So I really invite you to use them for exactly that. And I will post them in the comments, as well as the link to the article that I featured them in. September is the new January, because I also shared in there how everything that exists, everything that comes into being, began with a thought. And I shared some personal examples to explain how that happens. So you can read all about that in the article link below. And also, I welcome you to share in the comments below, like what you discover from spending some time with these very powerful and insightful questions, because I'd love to support you there with that as well. And I just want to say hi to everybody. I want to say hi to Val, who's here. I want to say hi to Charmaine. Hello. It's so good to have you guys here. I hope you got here early enough to hear my shout out to you. We have Val, who's my longtime friend, and she is an Okanagan girl. She's here in Vernon, but she also is from the far East Coast. She is also from Nova Scotia. And then Charmaine is over in Alberta. So, hey, yay. So glad to see you guys. So glad to have you here. And this morning, I also sent out an email about overcoming self-sabotage. So if you haven't read that yet, it's in your inbox. Or if you don't get my emails yet, what are you waiting for, right? You can get the good stuff delivered right into your inbox by downloading my 3 ways to step out of stress and struggle now cheat sheet. So it's like on the very top of my my homepage on my website. You can get that, and I'll also include the link below. So there's some really good gems in there. Okay, so if you don't have that, there's some really valuable tools and some for stress release and avoiding stress altogether. So I would recommend you get it if you don't have it already. And if you're already on my mailing list, you can still download it. So we're going to get some personal insight and clarity from the real desired, for the real desired change, a new possibility that you want with those 3 questions that I gave you. And then what happens is you start to get like a little excited, right, for all the new things that you want to do and change. But then that little voice, right, starts to creep in your head. And we all have it, and we've all heard it. Like, who do you think you are? What makes you think you deserve this? You don't know how to do this. You don't have the intelligence or the degree or the capability, or you don't have the right to do this, or what will everyone think? Don't you love that one, right? Or this will never work, right? So you recognize the voice, right? Like, do you guys recognize the voice? I know I recognize the voice. I know that that voice pops up every time I go to like do something I've never done before. So it's the voice of self-sabotage. It's that voice that becomes like really loud, really persistent, and really cynical anytime we try to grow, anytime we try to change, anytime we try to like get outside our comfort zone or try something that we've never done before. So it's that voice that makes us doubt ourselves. It makes us doubt what we deserve, what we're capable of, what's possible for us. And if we don't have some strategies, if we don't have some tools to be able to deal with this voice, it's also the voice that will cause us to give up. It will be the one that will make us make poor choices, and it'll be the one that makes us self-sabotage, right? It'll make us sabotage ourselves because it's a fear, right? This voice is the voice of fear. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was kind of thinking about, I was doing an exercise with a client, and then afterwards I was kind of thinking about that exercise and applying it to my own life. And I was thinking about how, looking back at my life and looking at different decisions I've made, and I realized that the decisions that I would consider to be not my best decisions, that kind of took me off my path, were all decisions that I made out of fear. I made those decisions out of fear rather than making decisions going towards what I wanted. Instead, I made just decisions to avoid fear, right? And that's what I'm talking about here, because that voice comes up, and that voice is what brings up all our old fears, right? And really what's going on, if we understand it, is that this isn't like a sign to give up your decision to create change or pursue whatever it is that you want to pursue, the new possibility for yourself. What's really going on is that our brain is just doing what it does, because there's a part of the brain that interprets anything unfamiliar, like change and new possibility, as a potential threat, right? It perceives it as being unsafe because it's unfamiliar. So it starts sending out those warnings of fear, those fear thoughts. So all of those things, who do you think you are? This will never work. All of those are fear thoughts. And it does not mean not to continue doing what you're doing. And it doesn't mean that it's all a loss, right? It just means that you need to be prepared that the brain is going to do that, that's the brain's fear response to change. And just, you have to have a strategy to move beyond it. So I have a strategy for you, and I call it my 3N strategy for overcoming self-sabotage of fear thoughts, because I like to be able to make things easy to remember, because otherwise you won't do them, right? If you can't remember what the hell the steps were, you're not going to be able to apply it to your life. So this is 3 N's, so it's simple. So the first one is you notice it, okay? So you start to notice the fear thoughts. So you become the observer of the fear thoughts rather than like being the fear thoughts. So just that strategy of noticing and isolating the fears is enough to give you like a little bit of perspective, to get you out of them, right? And it's really best if you can just start to write them down, because once you see them on the page, they kind of lose their power over you just by doing that. So from this vantage point of observing and putting the fear thoughts on the page, there's like a shift that happens where you are no longer the thought, right? The thoughts on the page, and you're observing the thought. So you are no longer the thought. So from this empowered perspective, then you go to the second N, which is you name it, right? So remembering that what's unfamiliar to the brain is scary. So in that way, really what's going on is that your brain is really very much like a child, like a scared child who really just needs to be reassured that it's safe and that you're in charge. So the part of the brain that is scared and conjuring up all these fear thoughts is called the amygdala, right? So it's kind of like in your temple here, there's one on either side. And so in order to like console your amygdala, I created this thing with some of my clients, which is kind of funny, kind of silly, kind of goofy, but it actually really works. And so it's called the amygdala, but I say, if you name it, like you think of it as a child and you name it Amy G. Dalla, right? Amygdala, Amy G. Dalla, right? It's goofy, but when you see it as a scared child, then you loses its power and you realize that you're actually in charge of that voice, right? And you're in charge of your mind to be able to calm it and reassure it. So you just reassure Amy G. Dalla that she's safe because you're in charge. And because you've taken back your power from these fear thoughts, you are in charge, right? And then from this empowered awareness that you're in charge, then you get to choose step 3, which is new thought it, okay? So by giving Amy G. Dalla a new thought to focus and obsess on, you're actually like short-circuiting the neural pathways of the fear thought. So you're just kind of putting a stop to it. And when you do that, you're also short-circuiting the self-sabotage along with it, right? So what's even the bigger, better bonus of this is that when you short-circuit that negative fear thought and start thinking, choosing your new thought, what you're doing is you're actually creating a new neural pathway in your brain with these new thoughts that activates a whole other center of your brain. That's not the fear part, but the creative center, where you can access the ideas and the solutions that will actually help you create that desired change and new possibility you want. So it's what we call a twofer, right? It's like you're stopping the negative fear thought and you're actually allowing for the access to where all of your solutions and creativity are. So what you do is you counter that negative thought. So you do it by answering or by challenging the original thought. So for example, who do you think you are becomes I'm Jodi and I'm making some changes. And if you just feel that yourself, how different that is. So we have this fear thought, who do you think you are? And you just feel like your energy go down and you just feel like all the fears start to creep up. But if you counter it and you're like, I'm Jodi and I'm making some changes, total shift in energy, right? You feel that shift in energy and you have accessed a new higher thinking part of your brain where it's like, yeah, I am making some changes. You have your confidence back. You have the focus. You feel like more alive by that. Whereas who do you think you are knocks you down, right? And it makes you feel like hopeless. Whereas I'm Jodi and I'm making some changes makes you feel empowered, right? So what makes you think you deserve this becomes, I don't have to deserve it. I want it and that's enough. And you see how much more empowered that is, right? So you don't know how to do this becomes, you're right, it's new, which means I'm going to have to learn something new. But I haven't met a learning curve I can't handle yet, right? So countering those fear thoughts puts you right back in your power, okay? So you get the idea. Do the 3 N's, name it, notice it, start to write it down, name it, take back your power from Amy G. Dalla, and then put a new thought in there, okay? And that's how you can use that strategy to just begin to allow yourself to think differently than you have previously allowed yourself to think, and allow yourself to get beyond the self-sabotage and move into the new possibility that you actually really truly want for yourself, because you've got the clarity from the 3 questions and then you have cleverly outsmarted the self-sabotage to be able to take the actions, to continue forward with the actions and not get stuck or held back or in that fear state, to actually be able to create what you want, right? Okay, so please, thank you. Yes, thanks, Val. Thank you for being here and thank you for loving this. I love you that you're here. I love you anyways, but I love that you're also here and that you're also appreciating this. So please post your questions. Even if you're watching this on the replay, post your questions, and I will also post all the links below as well to the articles and the stress kit cheat sheet so that you can access all of that. And if you have any ahas that you get, whatever ahas you get from answering the clarity questions, please post those as well. I'd love to be able to support you with that as well. So thank you all for being here. You're welcome, Charmaine. I'm so glad you're here. And it's so good to have you guys, all of you here. And Val and Charmaine, thank you for being here live. And post whatever you need me to answer in the comments below, and I will post the links as well. All right, have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Enjoy your Fab Friday, and I will see you here in Imperfect and Unapologetic soon. Okay, bye-bye.